I tell people, yes, the cyber war has been going on for a long, 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 long time, and we have a cyber war that's going on right now, in the Middle East. They've used me and my tools and my software and my knowledge to help them, in their war capabilities. So you can call me a war profiteer or cyber mercenary. I don't fucking care.
Hello, everyone. This is Rick Mishkin with the Cyber Pro podcast. Industry leaders share their insights because hackers never sleep. Oh my God. Chip is back better than ever. We get to see his beautiful, wonderful face. Chip, who are you and why are you awesome?
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but okay, here we go. My name is Chip Harris. I'm a cybersecurity, you name it. So that I've been doing this now for exactly 29 years. So I've been doing this for a long, long time. My official job title is I'm a cybersecurity investigator, auditor, as well as I work with risk assessment for my clients. I do own my own LLC and now published author. So I have written 2 books and I'm kind of doing a little book tour, virtually, to talk about what it is that I talk about, which I deal with cyber warfare in the IT and the OT space. So I kind of a gonzo journalist. So I'm kind of the Hunter S. Thompson of our industry. So, there's a lot of said in the books. So, it is not for under under 18 people that read my stuff. So, and it puts readers into the shoes of me because I was there when this all broke out and happened, and I'm normally the one that's got to fix it. So, I write my books, from a gonzo journalist kind of standpoint. So, right now I currently work with the New York, New Jersey Port Authority, Joint Cyber Command, JSOC, and DARPA. So I deal with a lot of people, and I've got, multiple certification names that's verbiage and ABCs that are behind my name that I really just don't care about anymore. So, you know, I can
Love
click
it.
the
Well, Chip,
key.
let's dig in.
I can click the keys and make the things happen. There you go. Ooh.
Fancy, fancy. Let's kick in right away with system failure. So I had a chance to read it. And in there, you talk about a kind of a hidden cyber war on infrastructure, critical
Yes.
infrastructure. But are we already in a cyber war and Americans just don't know it?
Well, the answer to that is yes. Most people obliviously turn on the lights and the water and flush the toilet and don't think about all the stuff that goes behind it, right? So my job is to make sure those things stay on and happen, because my LLC, which is me, I get, engagements from major power companies and subs to be able to go out there and test their systems, like, red team it to kind of, get an idea like what a nation state would do to hack these kinds of things and whatnot. And I've been doing that progressively since 94, and testing a lot of these things. And so when I wrote the book, it was kind of like, when goes south, what are you going to do? Right? When there is no power or water, these are the things that have been happening since the mid 90s, of the cyber war that people don't even know about, and I preach that gospel. It's like, do you have enough water to last 3 or 4 days, food to last 3 or 4 days? Because the government is not going to come to save you. Their job is to care about the masses, not the individual, so I tell people, yes, the cyber war has been going on for a long, 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 long time, and we have a cyber war that's going on right now, in the Middle East. So they've used me and my tools and my software and my knowledge to help them, in their war capabilities. So you can call me a war profiteer or cyber mercenary. I don't fucking care, but the check still clears. So if you really want to know about it, you can read the book and see, about some of the things that's happened. I kind of give a little bit of a history lesson because most people don't know about this stuff, and this goes back to the Clinton eras. This goes back to the 90s when you really started seeing, hey, let's just not attack a bank. Let's go turn off the bank's, electricity. Let's go turn off the water. Let's go turn off a building, and see what happens. And these systems are old. Our infrastructure is old. It's 30 years old. If we started right now to try to repair it, it would take us another 30 years to get caught up. So, you know, you got systems still running on XP, fire and forget. So I try to bring that to light, to a lot of people to understand, what it is, the gospel that I preach, and, they normally hire me, Mr. Bad Guy here, to kind of show them, what can be done and what can't be done to protect their systems.
Love it. Chip, if you, for the viewers, He said he started this in 94. He was 4 when he started, so just you can do the math from there.
Yeah, out of the womb with a keyboard. There you go. Just double clicking away, you know.
I love it. So, Chip, your new book is called When the Wires Start Screaming. I think that's amazing. What does that phrase mean?
So when the wires start screaming, it's based around, one thing and one thing only is, we have certain people that we elect that do the people's work, right? That are supposed to be protecting us in our infrastructure, which they're not doing, right? So when the wires start screaming, there's certain policies and stuff that have been put in as roadblocks to make things happen. It's bureaucracy, it's red tape, and when the wires start screaming is when the electricity grid, and the power grids start getting overtaxed, and we're seeing a lot of that now that most of our power grids, which are ass old, are being just, put to the limit. I'm just waiting for a fart, to happen in Texas to watch their whole power grid just completely go offline.
So
Because
they
I
call
mean,
them brownouts.
yeah, yeah. I mean, rolling blackouts. I mean, and if you're like me and the world revolves around this room and all these computers and stuff make the things happen, what happens when that, goes offline? Well, gets real, real quick, and terrorists, and nation states don't give a they don't. China has not your best interest in mind. They want you dead. They want you dead in the water, not being able to communicate, not being able to do things, be able to get water, power. And this also builds into our emergency communication systems, And now that we have AI in the mix, which is eating up more power, and more stuff. I was just looking today, Texas is building a huge data center that's 5 miles by 5 miles. That's a big ass building. You know what? And it eats up a lot of water, a lot of electricity, and a lot of natural gas. And it's a $50 billion project, right? And, we have companies now that are saying, we don't have enough power in this area. Let's build a nuclear reactor. That'd be awesome. We'll use clean nuclear, whatever the hell that is, to be able to power this. So we've adding more stuff to a overtaxed, network and system. And that's when the wires start screaming, right? Because the power consumption, the power use, and then all the policies and the stuff that go behind it that make things kind of like the things that you don't see about when you pay your water bill, or you pay your electric bill. I've been saying for over the past 2 years, soon you're going to see your electric bill damn near about as much as your mortgage, or your rent payment, because of the fees that are being taxed on there to the consumer to be passed on to these $1 billion a year companies that are raking in the money, but they're not improving infrastructure. And I can name some names. I don't give a damn. I'll call you out, straight up.
Here we go. I love it.
Tennessee
So
Valley,
let's
Electric, Tennessee Valley Authority, TVA, they hate my ass. I mean, straight up. I mean, because I'm like, no, because the first thing that I did last year was I have a digital meter on your house, right? They used to have the old roll meters. You can sit there and watch the little thing go around, and the faster it went, the more energy consumption you could do. So they put a digital meter on my house, and I was like, ooh, what can I do with this? So I went out there and I got it to run backwards. So I wasn't paying energy,
so
they
they
were
owed you
paying
money.
me. They owed me money. Made my power bill zero. And they were like, how the hell did you do that? And I was like, well, why don't y'all just listen to me for once? Since you're paying me this money to do this evil shit. And the next day I had TVA, I had U.S. Marshal come to my house first off and serve me a cease and desist order, which scared the crap out of, everybody. Like, oh my God, what the hell is he doing? There's like 5 cop cars out in front of my house, right? Because they were thinking I was some kind of terrorist. I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm getting paid to do this, you know. And then I had like I had, the electric company, the sub, I had the US Marshals, I had the Department of Energy and TVA all at my house the next day with laptops going, how'd you do all this? And I'm showing them how I reversed engineered, the fiber connection that terminates to a Cat 6 to where Kali Linux can go in there and just cause all kinds of bound that they didn't even know about.
I love it. Chip, I want you to tell our viewers what the difference is between IT and OT security.
So IT is what we're dealing with right now. We're talking on computers, we're touching keyboards. It's your normal PC, right? It's your cloud environment, which is actually a data center somewhere else. It's, still there. It's the
Someone
internet.
else's compute.
Somebody else's computer. It's the internet, right? It's the normal things that we use between our phones, and all the stuff that we have that are our IT devices. That's IT, right? That's your computer. That's the stuff that you use, your headphones, your headset, everything like that. OT is operational technology. It's your power grids, it's your water, it's your septic, it's your everything that is the world underneath the world. I said that in the first book. It's the things that you don't even think about. You turn on your light switch, you don't think about it, right? The lights come on, woo, right? You don't think about the phone poles. You don't think about the sub power station that's taking those big, huge towers that you see out in a field that got those high energy lines running into a sub that's breaking that down into usable power for the masses, right? That is the OT world, operational technology that we use today. And it's been around since the 70s. And guess what? It ain't changed very much since then. It's still the same kind of that we've been using for years and years and years that nobody thinks about, right? It's what I call fire and forget, right? We turn it on, we don't think about it, it's running, yay, the lights are blinking, walk away. There you go. That is operational technology, right? It's used in factories, it's used everywhere. It's used in manufacturing, it's really used, in our supply chain, which is fragile as hell. So I talk about a lot of these things about the first part of the book. I said, okay, before we even get started, let's break down the terminology, right? So if you read my book, the first one, I did the same thing. I put the same chapters in the second book, like going, okay, this is what we're talking about, right? This is this is what SCADA is, right? This is a system controller. It's no bigger than a lunchbox, but guess what? It's got a fiber connection and it controls all of this kind of stuff, right? And we've heard OT being attacked before in a weaponized fashion. Well, Stuxnet, right? We were able to shut down virtually, an entire nuclear enrichment facility in Natanz, that basically kept the Iranians from creating a nuclear weapon or the process of enriching uranium to make a nuclear weapon, right? So I kind of break these things down of what SCADA systems are and like what these things are, some of the terms that you're going to talk about. Because if you just started reading the book with chapter 1 without reading the forward, you wouldn't know any of the terminology. You'd be like, what the hell is this shit? And you're having to Google on your computer or your phone. He's talking about what? I didn't want that to happen, right? So I went to really deep depths on explaining what operational technology is and how crucial it is to your daily life. You don't even think about it.
I love it. So just piggyback on that. What's the most common vulnerability in an OT environment?
Well, since it's 30 years old, it's the upgrading of those systems. Okay. So most of these systems still run XP, they're standalone systems. But, for some weird reason, we decided let's put the shit on the internet. That'll be a great idea. Let's just put it on the internet and see what happens. Okay, well, if you haven't patched and it's not current and it's got vulnerabilities and stuff out there, you can use web applicational programs to go out there and just scan the stuff and find out what the IP addresses are publicly. And then it's just open, field day after that, right? Because these things don't have cybersecurity protocols baked into them. Okay. So if you know what a SIM card is, just a little small SIM card, it goes in your camera, goes into your phone, whatnot. That's what these things run off of, right? They run on about 20 lines of code. That's it, right? And if you change that code, it goes into a safety mode and turns that system off. So if you know how to with that like I do, congratulations. If you put it on the internet, it makes it even easier to do, right? So these standalone systems that are old, ass old, that have been around there forever, including in energy, I mean, everywhere. They're everywhere. They're all over the place. And you don't realize it, right? They're easy to screw with if you know what you're doing. So that's, where we're kind of at right now. It's like we've really got to upgrade these systems. We've got to patch these systems. We now have to, by law, have to audit these systems with like we would do an IT audit, right? So now we have to say, okay, we've secured all the systems in the, the building. We locked down the, the guest network. We've locked down all the firewalls. We've done all this stuff. Now we have to look at it from the standpoint of how we lock down the physical environment, right? Camera systems, alarms, water, whatnot. I did about 2 years ago with a company that hired me to go out there and do a test on a hospital. Okay, hospital. just nothing big. Test our IT systems and see what you can do. Test our OT systems. Normal pen test, right? Most people in the world know what a pen test is. That means evildoer is going to try to attack you, and all rules are off the board, right? So it's a black hat. I'm gonna with your. So what I did, I literally went on eBay and bought an AT&T Polo. Okay, put on my tool belt, put all my evil stuff that I needed on jump drives. I mean, I got some of them right here, so on my little, jump drive here, I had all my stuff and whatnot. And I just went in for, because I have about a 99%, success rate on social engineering. In other words, manipulating the people. People are always the weakest link, right? So I have a tool belt on and everything. I said, hey, I'm from AT&T. We're doing a service call and everything. I need to go into your data center to be able to plug in some stuff. The lady at the front was a nurse. She didn't know, right? She goes, oh, my name's Pam. Come on in here. This was in Alabama, by the way. Come on in here. We'll just take you right on into the data center. They've gone to lunch because I hit them on their lunch period, right? So I go in there, plug in all my stuff, install all my remote access tools, all my Hack 5 stuff, ready to rock and roll. Thank you so much. She got me a cup of coffee. It was really nice. She really nice Southern hospitality. Got me a cup of coffee. I did my thing, walked right on out, right? Walked out. From the drone that was in the parking lot, I flew it on top of the building and stole their Wi-Fi for the entire event, which was 5 days. Then I was able to get into their OT systems, right? So this is the life-saving gear systems. So these are the things that provide oxygen, to the patients, ICU, NICU, where babies are in these canopies, whatnot. So I started screwing with that, started screwing with their water system and their power and whatnot. So I was able to get into all the stuff, all the things, right? So I was like, when we did the assessment, the doctors were sitting there with the IT folks. They're going, well, what this can't be done. This is crazy. I'm like, no, this has happened before. I could literally turn on, let me give you a worst case scenario here. Right. And I love doing these things because it scares the bejesus out of these people. You can literally hear gold bricks dropping, kittens being born, cows mooing, because they're bricks, having kittens and crapping cows. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe this. So I was like, okay, let me give you a worst case scenario here. I turn all the sprinkler systems on, and then I take the power and and the HVA system, and I turn the air conditioning on to the lowest settings it can go, right? So the chillers are now pumping out 50-degree air, water is spraying all over the hospital, and I lock all the doors, right? So now you have to go into a triage-based systems, because then I immediately turn off the oxygen to the people that are in the ICU and the NICU. So you got people dying and babies that are dying now, right? Now you've got to evacuate the hospital, and you've got to take people, which this is a 4-story hospital, down the stairs, right? And now you're in triage, which triage is, I talked about this in the book, is the worst thing you could possibly have. That's when a doctor gets to decide who lives and who dies, right? And then I turn off all your computers. Okay, so now you're doing everything by paper, right? And you're evacuating the hospital, via helicopters, or you're having to take people and transport them to another hospital. And they're like, "Oh my God, that's horrible." I was like, "Yeah, we've seen this before." They're like, "Where?" I said, "Hurricane Katrina." I was down
Mm-hmm.
there. Hurricane Katrina showed us how vulnerable a hospital is with patients when you're in the middle of a fucking hurricane. No different here. Right? So I'm flooding, poop is coming out of the toilets, list goes on and on. I control your entire environment, right? And they said, okay, what do we have to do to fix this? And I said, well, break out the checkbook because this is going to be expensive. There you go. So that kind of gives you a nightmare based scenario of just me, just one person doing this, right? So now imagine this is done by a nation state that doesn't like us, like China or Russia, and they do this to hundreds of hospitals at a time, all at once. So that kind of opens people's eyes like, oh my God, hackers have the ability of doing evil. Do not get me wrong, right? And normally it affects fraud, money, and as an investigator, I investigate those things all the time. People stealing money, ransomware, malware, whatnot. But when you start really looking at what you can affect in the real world, that's power. That is real, honest to God power, right? Because I have control of your power, right? And I've done this for labs. I've done this for multiple different, institutions, and it's one of those things where they don't know till they know, right? They don't play the worst case scenario. They don't look at the risk assessment. They don't look at the OT systems like they do IT. Finally, the federal government, and I put this in the book, started waking up about 5 years ago and, oh, we really need to lock this shit down. Because guess what? If we can do it, the evildoers can do it as well.
Chip, you kind of talked about it already, but white hat, gray hat, black hat, hackers. What Jedi are you, and what's the difference?
White hat guys are doing it just because, hey, I use the door scenario. Okay. White hat hackers just show you the door, right? They open up the network, they show you the door, right? Gray hat hackers go into the door and open it up and they just look inside. They don't do anything. Black hat hackers, we go in the door and cause bound. That is our job. Our job is to cause as much damage as humanly possible, right? But as you know, and I'm a black hat hacker. I mean, that's all I've ever done. I mean, that's what I was born and bred to do. I mean, ever since the '90s. I mean, when we were still from Napster. I mean, we were downloading songs illegally, right? So, I've always been that BearShare, LimeWire kind of guy for us old people that remember those things. I was doing that, way ahead of, what the kids are doing now, so I kind of got in on the ground floor and I was like going, this is what I want to do in life, right? I want to be able not to break stuff, not to be a cracker to crack into systems, but to be able to show people, and that's my ethos is to protect, right? Because I mean, as an investigator working with the people I work with a lot of cops. I work with a lot of federal agencies and whatnot, and most of them don't know because they've never done it before. They don't Government lacks imagination. They really do. I mean, it's like the military. They beat it out of you to do orders, right? I do this, 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 and only this, right? Us in the, hacker world, we kind of break out that square box. That's our jobs is to think different, not plug an apple by any means, but, our job is to think at what I literally put it in the book. It's called abstract forward thinking, right? Most people think in a Polaroid while we think in a, panoramic view, the three, and I hate that business term. We have the 365-degree view of blah, 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 blah. I hate that because guess what? No, you don't. You're thinking about this little notch. Well, I'm thinking about the bigger picture, right? So, that's kind of what, people in my industry and kind of what I do. Because, I mean, I am a certified ethical hacker, pen tester, forensic investigator, and auditor. Woo. I've got these ABC analogies behind my name because I can take a test and, and get the certifications. But when it really comes down to it, can I, take this mouse right here and click and do the things that need to be done to make these things kind of happen? So, I mean, you see where I'm coming from. That's my gift. That's kind of what my job is to do. And I enjoy it. I really do. I mean, and I enjoy helping the people be able to do what they need to do the best possible way.
I love it. Chip, it sounds like you're the white Mace Windu. We'll go with that. See if we can't get you the purple lightsaber.
I got a lot of Darth Maul in me. I got a lot of Darth Maul in me.
I love it. I
I
love
mean,
it.
I can do some,
So
Vader like you wouldn't believe, I mean, and I have no problem doing it because that's what I'm supposed to do. Yeah, I can do the Mace Windu stuff, for the analogy that's there. But, I'm also the evildoer, and I'm the one that's showing you all the problems that you're getting, from that. So it is what it is. I can do the white hat stuff if you want me to. I can just, open the door, show you the vulnerabilities, do the kind of gray hat stuff, but really, I'm the Darth Maul coming in there just whacking away, showing you really what the evildoers are going to do to you.
there's a force choke joke in here somewhere. Let's pivot over to Chip's opinion on artificial intelligence, Skynet or fluffer?
God damn it, here we go. I knew it was coming. All right, so here we go with artificial intelligence. Okay. You've got your chat GPTs, your Anthropics, all these different kind of companies, right? And I'm saying AI is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. It's a race right now. I mean, that bullet train has left the station. And, we are trying to get to certain points in AI that we could talk about for the next 4 hours if we wanted to. AI is a tool. It's a tool. That's all it does. You ask it questions, it gives you an answer, right? And here's the thing, AI is in its primordial sludge right now. It hasn't even developed into a creature that can walk on the earth. It's still in its infancy stage, right? Computers have been around 30 years and we can't even fix password issues, right? So what the hell are we going to do with AI? You know, is AI going to fix that? And we've been harping on that since the whole damn thing began. So, AI has its place in the environment, right? It's not the end all be all. Now, and they talk about, oh, the loss of jobs. Oh, robots are going to do this. Hell, that's been happening for years, right? And people are in the white collar, and we're really affix the white collar industry versus the blue collar industry. It hurts, but it's just like the Gilded Age. As I've said this before, you've got to adapt. You need to have that tool in your toolbox to be able to do it, because if the bad guys can do it, we need to be able the capability of doing it too. So it's a double-edged sword. you know I like AI does some great things. It helps me out writing reports, it helps me do research, it helps me write my books, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing to have, but it is a tool. You will need humans in the loop always, and you're not going to have this Terminator kind of thing that's going to destroy you. It's going to be more like Star Trek. It's going to be able to help you fix the shields. It's going to be able to help you find information on a new race, or whatever. I mean, make your analogies from there. It's one of those things where it's a great tool to have in your toolbox, but it's not the end all be all, right? It's just another part of the solution, right? And now we have to add that into the solution. And that's a good thing. I like that. That is something that it's tangible, it's usable, but it also is man created. So therefore it has man problem issues, right? So in other words, humans are not infallible. It's not infallible, right? So I kind of fact check a lot of stuff that I use with it, especially writing code, and working on SQL, queries or whatever it may be. It might be able to do it to a point, but there also has a point to where I have to do stuff as well, right? So in the power and the industries that we're dealing with now in the OT world, it is very scary, right? It is very scary because AI doesn't know the language yet. It doesn't know the environments yet. It doesn't know exactly what to do, what not to do. I will believe the sensor on the pipe, what it's reading versus what it's in the command and control room being run by an AI. you know, Good monitoring tool, good system tool. But if it says, so much PSI pressure is going through that pipe, I'm going to look at that sensor in that pipe before I look at that computer screen. I'm going to believe it, because we still have to have the ability to kind of hand crank this stuff. If the things go awry, which they normally do, we want to be able to touch it, right? You can't do that in the computer world. In the physical world, yeah, I need to be able to go over there and shut that, system off, or turn that system back on, or check that to make sure that it has values, that it's what it's saying in the control room versus what I'm seeing here. So there you go. That's my thing on
I love it.
AI. It's just another tool. It's not some death sentence, that some of these people are talking about, that's going to kill us all, because it's not. It's not going to take your job. You need to adapt your job to have AI. It changes good, man. Think outside your box. Get out of your comfort zone. I'm really good at taking things out of the comfort zone, right? And here's the thing, we got to start telling the truth about it, right? We really need to start talking tangible things, that we can talk about, that have meaning to it, not some futuristic, that sci-fi writers write about. We're talking about tangible things. If I bring this into my environment and I'm paying all this money for it, and I'm paying X amount of dollars a year on, what's my profitability on return? What's it going to do for me to, enhance my people and my teams, right? How easy is it to use? What's it going to do for me, right? That's what hackers say. What's it going to do for me? Not for you. What's it going to do for me? Is it going to make my job easier? Is it going to make it better? So.
Chip, there was something that I read in one of your books. You shared a super powerful story about a CEO stopping you during a security presentation after just a couple of slides. Why do CISOs, why do security leaders fail in the boardroom? And what should they be doing to get that CEO's attention?
So CEOs need to get down into the SOC desktop support level. Okay. That's the thing. They're up here, we're down here. I'm in the trenches constantly. Okay. That's my job. That's what I do. There's a disconnect sometimes between the boardroom for what they think is happening versus the reality of what is happening. Okay. Does that make sense? So, perception sometimes becomes reality. Words matter. And when I start talking about stuff, people kind of listen. Ears kind of perk up a little bit, because it's like, look, have you really seen what's going on in your environment? Right? Why do you have split tunneling? Why do you have stuff that's exposed to this? Yada, yada, yada. And the thing, though, too, is CEOs don't, and I mean, I'm a virtual CISO for a startup company, right? And I have no given, period, when I talk to them. I'm like, this is bad. And here's the reasons why, right? And they don't want to hear the truth. They don't want some sugar coated, kind of. Normally, when you're going in and doing a presentation, they want to hear the 10 minutes of bad and the 30 minutes of good, right? Well, I'm the reverse. Here's your good things that you're doing, and here's the bad that's actually happening, right? So look at the tickets, talk to your manager, get involved, right? Get out of your little white palace for a second, and stop reading Redmond magazine and going, oh, that's a really cool idea. I think we should do that for the company. Figure out what really is going on. Know your susceptibilities and your vulnerabilities, right? And if you're not fixing that, every 3 to 5 years, you're screwed. I mean, that's the Moore's law's out the window. We are every 6 months AI is changing. Hell, AI is changing sometimes more rapidly than that. So, is your environment and what you're doing now, is that progressive, right? And that affects healthcare, that affects everything that we do: healthcare, power, energy, water. I mean, what's the changing environment? And sometimes and I had in that book, the CEO was just kind of like, okay, is it that bad? And I'm like, yeah, it's that bad. You're pretty much, if an evildoer wanted, I mean, from an internal standpoint, they were the most susceptible, right? So the insider threat was the highest level versus the external threat, right? So they're thinking, oh, we got domain blocking and we got these firewalls, we got all this kind of stuff. But Tom over there is pissed. He's had enough. And guess what? He wants to cause some damage. And he's got some admin passwords. If he started going there and we wouldn't know, right? So not only you have to look at the internal threat, you got to look at external threat. You've got to look at how you're progressing within your IT environment. Are you doing your pen testing? Do you have a red team? You got your blue team, your red team, your purple teams. The red team's bad guys like me that do the evil stuff from the outside. The blue team is your SOC, your desktop support people, the people that make the things happen, right? Your management staff. Get out of your contained, world and start talking to other teams. Communicate a lot. And, don't be afraid to talk about the bad in front of the boss. It's not going to get fixed if you don't. That's very simple. CEOs don't want to do that sometimes. They don't want to hear
we're
the
going to get
truth.
into the rapid. That's very true. We're going to get into the rapid fire, and we're going to go right into the rapid fire off of what we just talked about, right? That so you're the CISO. What are the 3 to 5 sentences that you get to say to the board before you get punted out of the room? What are those 3 to 5 sentences?
Well, the first one is, here's the reasons why, and this is what we got to do to fix it. Cut me a check. Because the CIO, right, and the CTO, their actual boss is not the president of the company, it's the CFO, the chief financial officer. Whoever cuts the check is who you report to. Okay, I've learned that over years of dealing with boardrooms, right? The real power of the company is the person that controls the purse strings, right? They're the ones that are going to sign off on your budgets. So normally I say, yes, this is the problem. This is how you got to fix it. And guess what? It's not cheap. None of this is cheap. Man, none of us are doing this for free. I'm not. And guess what? It's going to cost a lot of money to fix some of these things if you want them done. Now, are you willing to commit to a project plan to fix this? And do you get the monies to fix those things properly? Pew, pew, pew. There you go.
I love it. What's one OT myth that needs to die?
One OT myth that needs to die. It is, first off, that this stuff is infallible. This is not, since we're putting this stuff on the internet to control, maintain, and monitor it, we have opened up the attack surface like you would not believe, right? So we need to treat OT just as much as we treat IT. We give them all this money and we love them and it's all great. Do that for your OT staff, right? When was the last time a CIO talked to to the physical plant facilities people on how much is screwed up in their building? Probably never. That's the myth that we have to break. It's not infallible. These systems are actually more susceptible to, bound and evil things that can happen, just like me. I mean, so imagine, if just name one of the dirty 30 evil countries that want to attack you, or corporate espionage, or insider threat. And that can go that goes across the entire board. So that's one thing that we really need to start thinking about is, hey, just because the system's running the water now doesn't mean it's going to be running the water tomorrow.
If you could mandate one security control across all critical infrastructure, what would it be?
Audit and update. Simple as that. Audit these systems, see how they work, see how they're controlled. Once you do through your audit, then we mandate policy. Like, okay, every 3 years, we're going to spend blah, 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 X amount of dollars to update this stuff. Now, most of your SCADA-based systems are meant for 5, 7, 10 years down the road, right? So that gives you a project plan right there. So every 3 to 5 to 7 years, 10 years at the max, we need to update this stuff, right? So if you start now, we'll be there within 3 years to where we got another budget, that's X amount of dollars plus a little more to start upgrading more. So in other words, you need to have a rolling budget to start, auditing these systems and then mandating what needs to be done to update, upgrade, and stay current.
How does security support business revenue growth?
Well, I got out of sales, so telling ain't selling in my world, right? So I got to see things happen, right? I'm one of those like truth to reality, right? And when salespeople and these people talk about it's a single pane solution to serve all your security needs, that's why I've just tuned you out. I had a meeting. I'll give you an example. I had a meeting with a vendor, and I said, okay, great. I hear what you're saying. How does the process work? Well, it uses invisible processes. What are you talking? What the fuck is invisible processes? It goes, it's math. It's high level math. I love math. Let's talk about it. Is it using Boolean, non-Boolean math? I mean, what kind of encryption rates are we talking about here? And I was like, okay, everything you've told me is just what you're reading, from a white paper, and it's a bunch of shit. What's it really going to do for me? What's the profitability on return if I spend $4 million on this and institute it in 12 different facilities? What am I getting out of it, right? Am I just getting, event logs, that or something might have happened or pinged? What are you giving me that's tangible solutions that's out there? Now, and I'm not bashing any of the companies that do any of that stuff. Don't get me wrong. I love my vendors. I love you guys really much. I love the Nozomis. I love the clarities. I love what a lot of these companies are doing out there. I mean, Dracos does a good job. You've got all these different vendors that are out there that do this kind of stuff. Same thing that I do from my room here in my house. So you know what? That's where you really look at the profitability on return. If I'm telling you the God's honest truth, and this is all screwed up, and this is what you need to do to fix it, and this is how much it's cost, it's going to be a benefit, because guess what? If you have an IPO, right, and you're traded on the stock market, when you get hacked and you've got to report that, your stock drops 22%. Next day. Takes a while to recover it. And if you don't believe me, go look at SolarWinds when they got hit, or CloudStrike, which I call them ClownStrike, but when they got hit, when you look at these big companies that have millions of dollars invested in this stuff into clients, right? And their stuff gets hit the next day, their stock profitability goes down 22%. That's industry standard. So then they got to build confidence back up, right? Oopsie, something happened. We didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. And it caused this kind of problem. And then you look at the lost revenue, right? If you're down, you need to be running a risk system. Like, if we lose this, how much is this going to cost? There are people that are way better than me that burn lean tissue into the midnight oil. Think, like, what's it going to, if this goes down, how much is it costing us an hour, right? In lost wages. Still got to pay you people, So you still got to, they're just sitting around with their thumb up their ass. I mean, what are we going to do to get them back to work, right? There's loss in that, that's what you really got to look at. It's a hard, truthful pill sometimes you got to swallow, but you learn, right? You learn, like, okay, this is the problem. This is the issue. This is what we need to do. This is our DR. Like, when was the last time you tested your DR plan, right? I tell people, like, especially when you look at disaster recovery, because most of this is physical, so it is a disaster recovery. If there is an act of God, like a tornado or a hurricane, what's that going to cost you, for being out, right, in a certain location? Then on top of that, though, too, is, most people don't even have a DR plan or a really good one. And I'm like, if you really want to enact DR, burn the building next to you, right? watch it go down on fire and look like, Jesus Christ, that building just burned down to the ground. They're not able to operate, right? How much is that costing them? Then you got to look internally and go, how much will that, if that happened to me or us, Jesus, I mean, what are we going to do to recover? Banking industry is really hyper about that, like they don't want to lose customers and lose money. They don't want to take that money. They don't want to give it back, so there you go.
All right, here's the fun last rapid fire for you, Chip. How does Chip, the man, the myth, the legend, fit into any customer security stack?
You bring me in when goes sideways. It's that simple. That's my job. I normally, if I show up at your door, you've done something to put me there, right? Because I work in criminal investigations. I mean, I do everything from narco terrorism to child pornography cases to fraud, a lot of fraud, you name it, right? So you've done something to put me there, okay? So in the security stack, I'm the guy in the back of the room that's not saying much, just listening. That's what I do. Like, when I go to a lot of these conferences, which is not that many because they don't let me out of this room that much, to go out there and mingle with the real people of the world, is that, when I show up, normally it's a bad day, for people. And I'm like, hi, we screwed up. Can you help us? Oh my God, this is what happened. Well, why did it happen? Okay. What were the policies and procedures that you have that didn't work? Right. Let's sit back and just really have a God's honest truth conversation about how susceptible you are, about how bad things can be happening, and what that's where I fit in, right? I'm normally the guy you call when things have gone really bad, but they also keep me in, there for, hey, is this a good idea? If we do this, how susceptible we really are. I mean, risk and vulnerability assessment, I make a pretty good living off that too, is to go in there and go, okay, this is how good is, this is how bad can be. And when I do a lot of these presentations and I talk to a lot of these companies and everything, it's all preventative maintenance, right? Just like your house, just like your car. You change your oil in your car, right? You put in windshield wiper fluid because why? You use it up, got to replenish it, right? Same rules apply. And it's also like Legos. When you get a bag of Legos, it's just a bag of Legos. You're like, oh my God, Jesus, this isn't a plastic. It's got to have instructions, right? You got to follow the instructions to put it together to make what it is you're trying to make. Same thing here. Let's look at our policies. Let's look at how we're baking things. We got this old system that's been around since Christ was put on the cross. It's been here forever. The company doesn't exist anymore. And the guy that knew about it retired. So we're screwed. If this goes sideways, this could impact business, right? Give you an example. I was working for the NIH and the CDC. It was one of a client, I was in there with a company. They brought me in and everything. And this was right at the height of COVID. COVID had just started. Okay. And they said, how bad is our network from an IT and OT perspective? Okay. You gave me the green light. I said, what's the rules of engagement? They said, there are no rules. I said, all right, let's go. And I had met with Dr. Fauci and all these people, no matter what you say about them, in under that administration. One of the key things they did not want to do is have data leaks. They didn't want COVID information to be leaked out there. Well, I found, 5 foreign nationals that was working with, the CDC and the NIH was constantly stealing data and sending it to China. So we had them arrested, took all their badges away, took them straight to the airport and said, congratulations, you're going back to the motherland. We will pack up your shit and send it to you. Give me all your hard drives. Give me everything. Yeah, and we were able to get that stolen data back. Now, that wasn't reported in the news by any means whatsoever, that we had 5 foreign nationals that were working, as, with the CDC and the NIH that was stealing data and sending it back to China. Right. So, and the other thing, though, too, was I kept seeing these huge data dumps. Where's this going? And it was a lady that had been working on AIDS research for 30 years. Every day she would back up her stuff to a portable drive and take it home and put it on her personal PC because she didn't trust the network. She didn't trust it would leak out. And this is critical information to cure AIDS. And I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to send some texts out. We're going to get your home computer. We're going to bring it in, and I'm going to make it stupid proof for you on your screen every day. You just drag and drop it, and it'll back up to the sand. All your data will be there. I'm making it idiot proof for you. User friendly. Okay. We're going to take every bit of this AIDS research that you have and bring it back into the environment and safely lock it down to where only your research staff and your people have access to it. Right. We're going to lock it down. But every day it's going to make a snap, an automatic backup, and then we're going to save it not here, but we're also going to back it up to a government facility. Does that sound good to you? She's like, I have been waiting years for somebody like you, right? Years. Okay. Now imagine if 30 years worth of research data on HIV, which whoever gets that cure controls the world. It controls people who live and die in Africa, nations everywhere, even the United States. So it's like, okay, if that was the cure, really, sitting on a home computer in Bethesda, Maryland, I would be bricks right now if I knew that, right? Does the CISO know that? No. Did the director of IT security know that? Did anybody? No, because I found it. I'm the evildoer, okay? I'm the one that found that out. And could I get to her home PC and do a remote access control? Absolutely, because it was all turned on. So it's kind of scary, when you start thinking about that in the reality of the tangible things that can be done. And we locked that system down. She kissed me. She was so happy. I mean, y'all are the best, great customer service. You locked all my stuff down. Did the CIO know about it? No. But when I told him about it, he went ballistic. And then that became a policy and procedure to where we did that with everything from animal and disease research down to, because, the NIH and the CDC actually is a hospital. Most people don't realize it actually has a hospital. We did that for Ebola research. We did that and we locked it all down, right? Because that was part of the JOB. That was part of the mission statement, right? But did these people at the higher level know what the lower people were doing? Total disconnect. If I had my magic screwdriver
Thank
and
you,
go bippity boppity boo, bam, that'd be the first thing I do.
Doctor Who in this. Chip, you are always, always welcome back. Thank you so much for being on the Cyber Pro.
Boy, it's a theme park of fun. So here's my shameless plug. I have written 2 books. Please do read them. I actually am working with Siemens. I'm under a contract with them. They made their staff read both the books. They went out there and bought them and said, look, this is your Bible. This is what you do and don't do. Okay. This is the reality of some of the things that I've written about, that I was involved in, that I kind of, exposed to the general public. Now, none of this is like black, operational top security, investigating aliens kind of bull. This is, situations that I've been in, that I've reported on, that I've sanitized, no names, of people that were there. Cause I, wrote about it from the standpoint of like, look, I was here in the situation. This is how it was. This is how it turned out. Right. And it is kind of scary, but, I kind of put it, the scare factor of like not Chicken Little, it's coming towards us, but, to the reality of the situation of how things are right now. And it's not getting any better. Hell, it's getting a lot worse, and we are not dragging the sword across the line. We're not meeting, as in the corporate speak, we're not meeting the deliverables on time. We're behind the line on this big time. And, I'm really trying to bring that to the forefront to educate people, right? To help them become better, not only in their IT environment, but their OT environment as well. So that's my biblical stance. I will preach that till I'm dead. And you will never see me on the cover of a book, ever, 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 ever. I'm not that guy. I'm there to help you push the narrative, not to be the narrative.
All right.